I read 6 books for the month of February, one of them being a DNF, and the other one I'm actually still currently reading. So sit back, relax, let's chit chat and talk about the books that I read for February. Every single book that I read this month I got from my local library, and it is helping me achieve my goals for the Anti-Brain Rot Reading Challenge. If you don't know what this challenge is, it is a challenge created by Jaylenepryorreads in order to help you prevent doom scrolling and prevent the brain rot by reading and consuming literature and media that you would love. I'm honestly really happy for the amount of books that I was able to read this month, so let's get started. Starting off strong, for the first book of the month I read was called The King is Dead by Benjamin Dean. This book is about a young man. His name is James and he is 17 years old and he is a newly crowned Black King of England. James has to face intense media scrutiny and a blackmailer's intent on disclosing his deepest secrets like his sexuality and his hidden relationship. The reason James has found himself as a newly crowned king is because his father has died. Along with that, he and his twin brother, who is 8 minutes younger than him, are having a difficult time coping with the new news of their father's death. And now that James has this newfound responsibility as being king, he has to be sworn into this new position in front of the people of England. And obviously, he's having a very difficult time with this new position because number one, he just lost his father. Number two, he has to hide his deepest, darkest secrets about his sexuality and a hidden relationship that he's having with a worker within the Buckingham Palace named Jonathan. And because of this new news, he has to save face by forming a fake relationship with a girl named Ophelia. But there is a reporter, a peasant named Buckley, that is putting out and reporting about the royal family's secrets, and there's also a whistleblower that is exposing James's secrets to the public. I would personally classify this book more as a mystery than a romance because I feel that the romance is secondary to the entire plot of this book. The mystery would be trying to figure out who the whistleblower is because they are the person that's exposing all of the family secrets that only the family would know within their circle, and figuring out why Jonathan has disappeared. And also the element of racism against the royal family is extremely profound. So the late king was white and his wife, the queen, is black. So the public is basically saying that the queen has hoodwinked the king into marrying him and to having children in order for her to get into the palace. That honestly could not be further from the truth. And the reporter Buckley is insinuating to the public, saying that the family is unworthy of the position that they're in and nobody wants to see a young Black teenager as their new king, which is insane. But instead, the public would rather see James's white cousin Cassandra as a new queen instead of him. So as you can tell, the odds are stacked up against James because he is a gay Black teenager in the ultimate role as ruler. But rest assured, James did come through at the end of this book in such a great way, and I rated this book 3 stars. The second book of this month was my very first classic, and it is Toni Morrison's Home. This is a book about a Korean War veteran who is on a quest to save his sister. So Frank is a Korean War veteran and he has recently just got home from a very traumatizing war, and one day he received a cryptic message from a woman urging him to rush home in order to save his sister before it was too late. He then escapes the hospital in order to make a cross-country trek by relying on strangers in order for him to find his way. This is such a beautifully written story because it interweaves Frank's journey along with Cedra's story, his sister. Sadly, she was abandoned by a man who was exploiting her, and then one day she becomes a medical assistant to a white doctor who practices in medical racist eugenics, ultimately placing her in grave danger. This is my very first Toni Morrison book, and the way that she is writing and has written all of her books, from what I've heard, and what from I can attest from this book, it is extremely poetic and a way that I've never read before. The way Toni was able to blend both point of views from Cedra and Frank and the perspectives of both of the characters seamlessly into one storyline was just amazing. And although their struggles were not beautiful, it was still very vivid and showing as to how she was able to write their story in such a beautiful way. For a book about trauma and moral reckoning, it was honestly a very gentle way to approach this story, aside from the brutal reality of what Cedra and Frank had to go through. And because of this, I rated this beautiful book 3 stars. This next book was my most highly anticipated read of this entire month, and it did not fall flat, not once, and it is Homeward by Angela Jackson Brown. This amazing book follows the story of Rose's path towards self-discovery and growth as she gets involved with the civil rights movement, finally becoming the woman that she's always wanted to be. After Rose has endured 2 great losses in her life, she and her family decided it's best that she stays with close family in Atlanta, which is also where her sister goes to school. Rose's sister Elena attends a school called Spelman in Atlanta, and she introduces Rose to her group of friends called the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee. That is a tongue twister. And this is actually a real civil rights organization created by young activists who wanted to organize direct nonviolent action against segregation and racial injustice. But mainly their objective was to participate in sit-ins. It only makes sense that Rose wants to find her voice again after all the devastation that she had to deal with, so she thinks that this is the best way. The author of this book, Miss Angela, put an immense amount of research into this masterpiece because at the time that this book was released in 2023, it was the 60th anniversary of so many historical events that had taken place. I actually had to write it down because there were so many to mention. I didn't want to miss any of them. But the first one was the assassination of Medgar Evers, the March on Washington, the bombing on 16th Street, Bishop Church killing 4 little girls, Cynthia Wesley, and Carol Robertson. And it was also the assassination of JFK. Insane. Author Angela also used MLK Jr. as a major symbol within this book because he was such a pivotal influence within the Black community and during the civil rights movement. And as we all know, MLK Jr. helped people find their own voice and encouraged people to speak up for their own freedom. And that's why I also annotated such a powerful sentence within this book, and it reads, "Freedom is never voluntarily given by the oppressor. It must be demanded by the oppressed." That's such a powerful statement as to what we're going through right now in life. It's astonishing because Rose's family and the people in the Black community of Parsons, Georgia had to deal with such racial injustice, violence, and just the sheer hurt from their white counterparts. And because of this, obviously they wanted to make a change. They no longer wanted to sit idle and wait for the next discrimination to occur. This was my only 5-star read of this month, and I absolutely recommend everyone read this, but particularly listen to the audiobook while you immersively read with the physical book. With all due respect to this next author, I wanted this book to be so much more than what it was. It was very highly anticipated for me to enjoy this month just because the concept of the entire book sounded so great, but it fell flat for me. And that is the book called A River Called Time by Portia Newland. I'm going to quickly read the blurb from this book because the premise sounded so good, but it just did not work for me. The Ark was built to save the lives of many, but rapidly became a refuge for the elite. The entrance closed without warning. Years after the Ark was cut off from the world, a world much like ours, in which slavery has never existed, a chance of survival within the Ark confines is granted to a select few who can prove their worth. Among their number is Mark Chris, who is the main character, whose path to future excellence is marred only by a closely guarded secret. Without warning, his spirit leaves his body, allowing him to see and experience a world far beyond his physical limitations. So when I read that part of the book, and I got 70-80 pages into this book, and it didn't work for me. There was a scene in this book where it was Marcris, a buddy of his, and 2 other girls. They had crushes on these girls, so they decided to go out to the woods one day just to hang out and be kids, you know. So Marcris and the girl that he had a crush on were laying down on the forest floor, and they happened to fall asleep while his buddy and the other girl ventured off into the woods. Now, Marcris thought he was dreaming, but he basically had a outer body experience where he was levitating off of the floor out of his body, and he was able to see what his buddy and the other girl were doing. Now, his buddy was trying to off the girl that he was with, and the girl saw him levitating in the air, but she knew that he was not in his body, obviously, because he's floating in the air. That is his secret, and that is his gift, that he's able to have these outer body experiences, and he was able to help the girl not get killed by his friend. I believe the reason I DNF'd this book was because I was listening to the audiobook. I did not have the strength, the courage, or the endurance to physically read this book because of the way that it's written. It's very metaphorical and it's very lyrical in a sense to where you have to really think and understand what the author is trying to say. So after I ran out of audiobook credits on Spotify, I was like, I'm not going to continue picking up this book. And at that point, I had already finished part 1 of the book, and I was like, yeah, this is just a good place to stop. So I'm no longer going to finish it. But that does not mean I don't encourage you to read this book. The premise is really good and it sounds very interesting. If you're into sci-fi, that is the genre of this book. So read this if you're interested. And the very last book that I read for this month is Honey and Spice by Balu Babalola. That is a gorgeous name, by the way. It's so beautiful. I don't have the physical copy for this book because I listened to the audiobook on Libby. This was a book choice for one of the book clubs that I am a part of. So you follow along the story of Kiki, and she is a young girl who is all about her career. She is very focused on college and she has no time for romance. But she must partake in a fake relationship with a man named Malachi in order to help her with a project that she is trying to complete. But when this fake relationship actually turns real, it definitely challenges her emotional walls. The trope and the concept of fake dating in this contemporary romance was extremely fitting, and I loved every single part of it. I actually listened to this entire book in a day. That's how amazing it was. And at the end of the day, Kiki and Malachi both got benefits from the situation that they put themselves in order to benefit their collegiate careers. Kiki is a popular radio show host on her campus, and the show focuses on toxic dating behaviors, and she obviously positions herself as an expert in this field. Malachi's passion is to become a well-known filmmaker, so why not team up together so that he can help her finish a project and she can help him improving his filmmaking skills. I can wholeheartedly say that this book honestly deserves a lot of praise because of how genuinely funny it was. But most importantly, the romance is so palpable and vulnerable for both Kiki and Malachi. And to be honest, this story really isn't about whether the two of them get together. It's more so about letting yourself be seen when you've built such a persona and identity around being untouchable. And to me personally, I don't think that this story is entirely about Kiki falling in love, but more so about letting herself go and letting herself be seen by someone that she actually knows that she loves. The cultural setting definitely feels rich and intentional because this story was entirely grounded and rooted within the Black British student life, friendships, and the community that it was built on. From the dialogue to the social dynamics within the university and the references that all the characters were talking about within this book definitely gave the feel of this really being a true to life story, and I feel like I could see myself going to this university. One last thing that I wanted to talk about, I forgot to mention this book, and this is the book that I am currently still reading by the time that you see this video. I don't think I'm going to finish it for the month of February, but because I picked it up in the month of February, I still want to talk to you about it. But this is a YA romance. It is called Island Creatures by Margarita Engel. She is a Cuban American that writes poetry. This is such a beautiful book and I love the layout of it. It's obviously poetry, so it reads very fast and fluidly. Also, can we take a look at my bookmark that my man got me? It's so beautiful. It's a corner bookmark that you just slide on the edge of the pages, and it has my initial on it, J, and it's so pretty. I love it. Thank you. But essentially, this book is about Cuban childhood friends Vida and Adan rediscover each other in Florida, where they work together to protect endangered animals while navigating their complicated home lives. Extremely simple and self-explanatory to understand. I love this book so far. I am on page 127 and there's about 230 pages in the book, so I'm almost halfway. These two characters definitely have complicated home lives. So we have Vida. She basically had a second chance at life after she contracted a horrible illness. So she now lives with her abuela, I believe, or it might be her tia. I should know this. They now live in Florida. And then we have Adan, and he is a now baseball player that lives in Florida. And one day, Adan stumbled upon a dog that was loose in the street, and he brought it to a veterinarian hospital where Vida actually works. And once they saw each other, they're like, I feel like I know you, but I'm not going to say anything. But eventually they did speak up and they said something to each other, and they rediscovered their friendships here in Florida. So now they're navigating this complicated friendship, and they now have to backtrack and pick up where they left off from their friendship in Cuba. So we'll be following along the friendship for the two of these characters and their common love for animals. So these are the 6 books that I read for the month of February. Let me know if you've read any of these books that I mentioned here in my video today, and let me know down in the comments what your February TBR was, and if you have any books that you want to read for the month of March or for the rest of the year. YouTube thinks that you're going to like this video right here, so watch, enjoy, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.